Joined by Byron Osborne. I've talked to you before about this issue, and I forget when it was, maybe 6 months ago, or the state prisons in Michigan. You open people's eyes as to what is going on. The people who work in the prisons and the Department of Corrections, they know what's going on. But once again, let everyone know who you are and kind of what you're about. You're the head guy. You work at a prison, but you're also part of the union, correct?
Yeah, I'm a corrections officer for the state of Michigan. Been an officer for 30 years, started in 1994. I'm also the union president for the Corrections Officer Union in Michigan, the Michigan Corrections Organization.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm pretty familiar with everything that's going on.
Gotcha. When we talked a while ago, it sounded bad, and we're lucky there hasn't been any, or maybe there have been major issues, staffing issue. I actually know someone since we last talked that works for the prisons, and they're working, like, it sounded like 60, 70, 80 hours a week. It's just grueling on them. Is that all still continuing, what we talked about last time?
Yeah, it is. I mean, we've got a number of facilities now that are, over half that are over 20% vacancy rates, and 5 of them are over 30%.
Wow.
Actually, closer to 40. It's kind of scary. The Cotton facility in Jackson is at 39% vacancies.
So that means there's 40% less correctional officers that should be there.
Right.
How are they filling? Are they filling the holes? Or are they not? Are they going?
Well, they're filling the holes. They're making everybody work double shifts. So 16 hours a day, every other day, sometimes back to back. Just not sustainable. I mean, people have no family lives. They can't even do the most routine of things that you would take for granted, like going to the grocery store, mowing your grass. Not able to get these things done.
Yeah. In addition to that, I mean, 16 hours a day, that got to wear on somebody. There has to be an issue then also with safety or security, because the human body needs sleep at some point.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's physically exhausting. The prison system, the prison setting is inherently a stressful place to be when you're only working 8 hours.
Yeah,
right.
mentally.
They need us. The state needs us to be in there and be fresh and alert. That's not happening. These people are blown out. I mean, they're just they're focusing on the time clock. When is this shift going to end? When can I go home?
And you said physically, but also mentally. Prisoners, inmates, a lot of them, they have all the time in the world to, and not all of them are, going scheming or being bad people, but they have the advantage of being able to have time on their hands. So,
well, let's face it, they give all the rope that's given to them. They take advantage if you're not alert. They take advantage if there aren't enough officers there that day, because that's what's happening. That's dangerous. Is in addition to all the overtime, we're still running the prisons every day with less than the required number of officers that are supposed to be there, because the facilities will close. It's called closing an assignment. So, for example, if they run out of people to mandate to stay, and you and I were supposed to work a housing unit with 160 prisoners in it, but they don't have another person to hold over, you run it by yourself. So you don't have a partner that day.
Wow.
That's where we're at. The staffing is not safe. And that in turn leads to problems for the prisoner population, because these folks aren't in there for doing nice things, and that continues inside the fences. So there's a big gang element in the prison system that takes advantage of opportunities to do things to other prisoners and extort them and press them. It has an impact on the entire operation.
Yeah, and not only public safety, but as you just said, safety for those who are incarcerated as well. So it's a domino effect, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking a third, probably, I would estimate a third of the prisoners in the state system that are in segregation right now are there for protection, not because of their behavior.
Oh, okay. Wow.
That's how it works in the prison system.
Wow. So you are saying something needs to be done now. This is an emergency, and you wrote a letter, or was it you or the union, to Governor Whitmer, correct?
I wrote it.
You wrote the letter. Okay, summarizing, and I'll put the letter within the the links for the show I'm doing. what does the letter say to the governor? And I'm assuming this is not a political thing. This is not Democrat, Republican. This is just, I'm
No,
assuming on your behalf, it's about a safety and a worker's, not freedom, but worker safety as well.
yeah. I mean, yeah, she happens to be a Democrat, but this letter would have went to a Republican governor as well. This letter is going to the entire legislature. We're seeking solutions. We're saying this is not sustainable. You're in this rut of trying to hire 800 officers a year approximately, all the while knowing that the normal attrition rate annually is the same number. Retirements, promotions, resignations are canceling out the new hires. So we're not getting a net gain of officers at all. We're stuck in a stagnant rut.
What needs to be done now, or what could be done now? And I believe in the letter, the highlights that the media is clamping on to, activating the National Guard for the state. Is that something that could immediately bring in fresh bodies to help?
Oh, we believe so. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and tell you exactly how it would look because it's never happened. This is kind of an unprecedented request. We know there would be some issues with it, but at the end of the day, we're saying if they could just provide us with additional bodies for eyes and ears and custody support. And when I say custody support, that just means maintaining order and making sure they stay behind the fence. To provide the current officers with the relief from all the mandatory overtime, while hopefully we would sit down with the governor's office and or the legislature and identify some long-term solutions. We know the National Guard, even if, I mean, let's face it, we know she's going to balk at this request, right? But at the end of the day, it would only be a temporary measure. We know they can't just keep the National Guard in there running the prisons. It doesn't work like that. But this is a step that would be temporary, that would just provide some relief and hopefully get them to acknowledge that for the past 5-6 years, her entire term in office, this crisis has persisted, and that's what we laid out in the letter. Uh, was it sharply worded a little bit? Maybe, but this is real.
Yeah, and it's something that's not that you don't hear about a lot. It's not, as I say the word, sometimes we say it in journalism, it's not a sexy issue. It's not school funding. It's not the roads, but it's an issue that, as you're saying, is still very important.
It is. I mean, the corrections officers in Michigan provide an invaluable service to the citizens of the state. We're maintaining order in 26 facilities. We're keeping them safe from incarcerated individuals. We're keeping the incarcerated individuals safe from themselves. Uh, I can't think of, other than the state police, I can't think of more important work that's done for the state of Michigan.
Yeah. So the immediate solution is to just have a stopgap, and then once maybe that goes into place, sit down with the governor, lawmakers, and hammer out something, a plan, because like you say, you're losing people. There needs to be a short-term and a long-term plan, because right now it doesn't look good.
No, I mean, it's status quo. Hey, we're trying. We're gonna try to hire 800 officers for you next year. That's great. We don't think you'll be able to, but even if you did, the best it gets us is a push.
And people are not going to want the job because what? They're looking at how it is now. And I'm assuming, just as a normal person, if I was in law enforcement or wanting to do that job, I would be like, I don't want any part of that.
Well, I mean, it's easy to go look for another avenue to find employment when other employers in the private sector and the public sector have similar benefit packages where you're able to work a normal pay period, go home to your family, and kind of feel like a normal person.
Yeah.
Why would you choose corrections if you're not going to get that? And you work in a place where on any given day you might get beat up by prisoners or stabbed or spit on. I mean, these are no-brainer decisions being made by some of these people entering the workforce.
So this is totally different from, let's say, union negotiations with UAW or something, because I mean, some people will say, well, is this a ploy by the union just to make more money? But I believe, if I'm hearing you, this is not the same as like a UAW negotiation. Totally different. Is that what I'm hearing?
Totally different. I mean, our folks are faced with exhaustion and staff safety issues. We're not complaining about how much money we're making. We have officers complaining and saying, I didn't want to make that much money this year. You made me stay and work 16 hours every other damn day.
Oh,
You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? They're concerned with needing relief and safer conditions.
yeah. And that's what this. Yeah, what I'm hearing. So I've heard some people compare it. This is unlike any other union discussion
Yeah, this
that you.
isn't us posturing to get a better contract.
Yeah.
There's nothing they can do in the contract that gives us post-retirement benefits or better benefit packages to attract and retain officers. We can't negotiate that.
Yeah, I see this. I'm looking at it that doesn't, and we've talked about this before. If things don't get better, I mean, heaven forbid there be a riot, there be a correction officer killed, there be an inmate killed. Doesn't this open the state to like civil or legal action? I mean, this could be a big liability if something goes wrong.
You would think they'd be concerned about that. You know, in a sense, they're living on borrowed time that for something like that to happen. It's not uncommon for prisoner deaths to occur at the hands of other prisoners. I mean, we've just had a couple of this summer already. So
Yeah.
um, it's just for us, in our opinion, it's kind of it's on the horizon at some point, right? I mean, it's just an overall bad situation for the entire operation.
When we talked to you last time, and I think you did other interviews, did anything even come of that? Did that get the attention of any lawmakers or the governor at all? Did it help? Obviously not.
Well, we've got a number of legislators who are paying attention to this. They did introduce legislation for us right now. It's still current, still open, um, which would allow corrections officers to participate in the current Michigan State Police pension plan. They'd be able to opt in. Now,
Mm,
we think that would be a significant step in addressing our retention problem because it would give people a reason to stay here.
yeah.
But the governor's office and the legislature last week, when they did the final version of the state budget, opted not to fund it. So now, even though the current legislation, the bills are still introduced and the legislature could take action on them, they haven't.
Yeah, and then that has to make you upset when you see, $1 million going to redo a baseball stadium in a certain city, all the millions in pork projects because there's things going on in the state that desperately need it.
Yeah, it's frustrating. I mean, we know how the budget process works, right? I mean, there's lots of special interest stuff. There's, certain legislators have their priorities. The Dems have theirs. The Republicans have
Mhm.
theirs. We get it.
Yeah.
But this should be a bipartisan issue. All of our legislators should be paying attention to the state Department of Corrections that ultimately they are responsible for.
And this will be my last question because I know it's a holiday. What can the average person do watching this? Because, I have a big reach. Can they call their lawmaker? Can they write the governor? I know some people say they feel that's a waste of time, but what can people do to help you, the average person?
Well, it feels like a waste of time sometimes because the bureaucracy is so big, right?
Yeah.
But it's not a waste of time. Public outreach does have an impact. Contacting the governor's office, contacting their local state rep or their state senator, their congress people, that does have an impact because those folks feel compelled to start digging in and asking questions when their own constituents start asking questions. So it does make a difference.
Yeah, it's fair. And I know, Governor Whitmer's name has been battled around lately a lot for president. So some would argue if that were to happen, they would take a microscopic look at the state and say how she's dealing with the state. So this would be one example that would probably come up. How have you dealt things on a state level? But as you said, this isn't Democrat, Republican. You just want safety for the people involved.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to hold Republican feet to the fire just as much as any Democrat. At the
Yeah,
end of the day, our elected officials have the authority, they have the means to address this situation, and so far they have not.
gotcha. Okay, well, keep me updated. I'm happy to get the word out and enjoy your 4th of July if you can.